In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Firstess MP200 multi-process welder. This is a 5-in-1 machine that is made by YesWelder. It is capable of doing MIG, flux core MIG, DC lift TIG, stick, and plasma cutting. And before I go any further, I do want to point out that YesWelder did send me this machine for the purpose of making this video, but they are not paying me for this video or my opinion. This video is 100% my honest opinion on this machine. And if you decide that you want to pick one of these up for yourself, I will have links down in the description that will take you straight over to the YesWelder webpage. And while you're there, be sure and use the discount code MAKINGSTUFF to get 10% off your order on the YesWelder webpage. So let's start out by looking at what all comes in the box with this machine. No welder is complete without a ground clamp. Next is a MIG torch, and this torch feels really good in the hand. It has really good weight to it. This red is a rubber grip, and it also has this heavy-duty strain relief here right on the end. And then next is a TIG torch that comes with some different sized collets and ceramic cups, a stinger to do some stick welding, and next up is a plasma cutting torch. This one has the same great feel as that MIG gun. It also has a little trigger protector right here. One thing that is different is that the strain relief on this one is plastic, but this still feels like a really good quality torch. And along with that torch comes a pack of consumables. It looks like we got a couple of electrodes, tips, and ceramic cups for that plasma cutting torch. It comes with this little pigtail that allows the machine to run off of 120 volts or 240 volts. There's what appears to be some PVC air line, and this is for hooking up the compressed air for the plasma cutter. And if we look here on the back of the machine, you can see I have already installed the pressure regulator and air filter. This filters and regulates the air for the plasma cutter. And the machine also comes with a gas hose. This runs to your argon or your CO2 argon mix. The machine also comes with some hose clamps and a drive roller for flux core wire. And the one thing this machine does not come with is a regulator for your shielding gas. You will need to pick one of those up on your own. And I think I'm going to start things off by doing some MIG welding, and I'm only going to use the finest Harbor Freight Vulcan wire.
Fascinating.
It is 030 diameter, and this is an 11-pound spool. And one thing to remember when loading this wire is this nut that holds the spool on is reverse threaded. Okay, so now that the machine is set up physically to do some MIG welding, the software is not, so I've got to go in here and make some changes in the settings. And here's where I want to point out that YesWelder has done a really good job with this screen. This is a full color screen here on the front. The only thing that would make it better is if it was a touch screen, but I really can't complain. I just have to go through and make all of my selections with these two knobs. So the first thing I want to do is put this into MIG mode. So I will turn this knob here until it says MIG. And the first thing I'm going to do is go into the settings. So I'm going to push in on this knob. And you can see it's wanting to know if I want inches or millimeters. I'm in the US, so I'm going to set it to inches. Then I will hit the select button. And you can see it says success. So this machine is now set up for inches. And now I will hit the button on the other side to go into the MIG mode. And you can see here across the top are all of the settings that you can change for this. And we will start out here. And the first setting is your gas setting. So it's set to 100% argon. I am not running 100% argon. I am running 75-25. So I'll put it on 75-25. The wire, I want steel, and I want 030 wire. It's already set for that. And it's set in 4T. I don't want 4T. I'm going to go in and put it in 2T. And I'm going to probably start out with, it was on 10 gauge. Yeah, we'll start out with 10 gauge wire, or not wire, 10 gauge steel is what we're gonna weld on. And then the last two settings is burn back in memory. I'm gonna leave those alone. And then it's set up here in the MIG mode. And what I can do now is I can turn this setting here, and you can see it's changing my amps and the feet per minute. And then I can change this one and it will change the voltage. And before I start doing some MIG welding, I just want to show you guys I am using the little pigtail that came with the welder that allows me to run it off of just a standard 120 volt outlet. And I dug around in the scrap bin and I found some 1-inch square tube. This is mild steel. I believe it's 12 gauge. I've got some pieces clamped up here. Let's see how well they will weld. All right, and here's what that first weld looks like. It looks pretty good to me, especially for a welder straight out of the box with the default settings. All right, and here's a little spoiler alert for you guys. Jackery did send me this solar power station to do a review on, and one of the things they claim is it will power a welding machine. This one has a 2 kilowatt output. And I figured while I have got the Firstess MP200 set up for 120 volts and I have the pigtail on here, let's see if this thing will indeed power a MIG welder. All right, so here is that piece of 1-inch square tube that I just got done welding. It has cooled down to the point that I can touch it. Let's see if the Firstess MP200 plugged into the Jackery will actually MIG weld this mild steel. So I think the answer to that question is yes, the Firstess MP200 and the Jackery 2000 work well together. Here's that weld that I just made, and there is the one that I previously made when the welder was plugged into the grid, and there it is again, plugged into the Jackery. All right, so let's step things up a little bit. I have switched the machine over to 240 volts, and I am going to crank up the thickness to 1/4 of an inch, and let's try welding some 1/4 of an inch mild steel. And for this test, I got some 1/4 inch mild steel angle iron. I'm going to try welding these two pieces together. And there's my 1/4 inch mild steel MIG welded together there. I'm going to play with the settings and see if I can't get a little bit better weld than this. All right, so for that weld, I played around with the settings. I've got it set at 160 amps at 42.9 feet per minute. And over here on the voltage, you can see I bumped it up 1.2 volts to 21 volts. So let's take a look at the result of that weld. And here's the result of that second weld. You can see it looks a little bit better than the first weld. There's the first one, there's the second one. So this machine is fully capable of welding 1/4 inch mild steel. And I really like how it welded that 1/4 inch steel. So I want to save these settings so that the next time that I need to weld 1/4 inch steel, I will have everything already set up and dialed in. I'm going to do that by using the memory presets. So if I push the select button, go over here to the memory and hit it again, you can see now I can select between 1 and 10 presets. So I'm just going to save this in preset number 1. And it should be saved there. Let's confirm it. So let's go to preset number 2. And it does take about 2 seconds for everything to load in here. So there's preset number 2. You can see my settings went away. Let's go back to preset number 1. And it should have all of my settings, which it does. So here's all of my settings that I just used for my 1/4 inch mild steel. All right, so let's switch over and try some flux core welding. I've got a spool of Lincoln inner shield here. You can see it is 035 and it is flux core. But before I can put this in the machine, I need to make a slight change to it. And that change that I need to make is I need to put this drive roller in the machine. The one that's in there now is for regular MIG wire, and this one is for flux core. And the way that I change it, so just unscrew this cap right here, pull the old drive roller off, and then put the new one in, and then replace the cap. And the wire is loaded into the machine, but I also have to change the polarity. If you look right here, you can see there's a little copper bar, and it is making a connection to the plus side. And if you see right here, it says gas plus, gasless minus. So what I need to do is just change this bar so that it makes this connection right here. And since I just changed the polarity of the torch to negative, I have to change the polarity of the ground clamp over to positive. And to test out this flux core, I'm going to use some 1-inch square tube. This is a little bit different though because it is 1/8 of an inch thick. And for someone who hasn't done a whole lot of flux core welding, this doesn't look too bad, but I am going to flip this over and play with the settings and see if I can't dial this in just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to try this again with some different settings and see if I can't get this dialed in. All right, so here's another look at that flux core weld. You can definitely tell from this that I need to work on my technique. I didn't have a consistent speed as I went across here with it, but I believe the machine is doing an excellent job on the flux core. It's just my lack of experience welding with it. Okay, so let's try something different. We haven't tried the TIG settings yet. So let's go up here on the screen, and there we go. There is lift TIG. And this is where things get a little bit more simple because the only thing you can change on the settings is the amperage. And I am going to start out here at 165 amps, and I'm going to try some more of that 1-inch square tube that has about 1/8 of an inch thickness to it. And just like the flux core welding, the torch setup is the same. I need ground clamp to positive and the electrode to negative. The torch is a little bit different. It does not connect up to the machine itself. It has a separate hose that runs directly to the regulator. And this is what I'm talking about. The torch has to hook directly to the argon bottle. This is what connects to the welder, and you can see this red line. It runs right here to the regulator, and I also had to switch the bottle out. Up until now, I was using 75-25 mix. And for TIG welding, you have to use 100% argon. This is the torch that comes with the machine, and I am not a big fan of this torch. It is very basic, and if you watched any of my other TIG welding videos, you know I like to use a foot pedal when I'm TIG welding. You cannot even use a foot pedal with this torch or even the machine. And it's very basic how it works. Even the gas flow, you have to hook the torch directly to the regulator on your bottle, and then you turn the gas on and off by turning this knob here. And I just don't like that. I prefer a foot pedal where the machine automatically turns the gas on and off with the press of the foot pedal. So you might be wondering, how on earth do I start a weld if there's no foot pedal to turn the arc on and off? Well, that's simple. This machine has what they call a touch to start feature, where you just touch your workpiece, and when you do that, the arc starts, and then you make your weld, and then when you're done, you just remove the torch from the workpiece and it shuts off. Okay, so I'm going to try some TIG welding with this machine now using some more 1-inch square mild steel. This is 1/8 of an inch thick. Let's see how well we can weld this using the TIG mode. And of course I got to turn my gas on, and let's give this a shot. Okay, so there is what out of the box default TIG settings look like on this machine. It's pretty good. I almost got my stack of dimes look going there, and I will say that that torch really wasn't all that bad. I mean, I still prefer the foot pedal because I would like to have dialed down the heat a little bit on this in the middle of the weld. So I think I may try this again and just dial the heat down a little bit. Okay, so here's that second pass. It does not look as good as the first pass because I had to move a lot slower. That puddle just didn't move fast enough for me. And if you look here, there's the first one, there's the second one. So definitely those default settings are better than what I tried when I dialed them back a little bit. So after using this torch, it really wasn't all that bad. It did get the job done. Other than personal preferences, the only really drawback I could see on this is that post-flow gas. You do have to touch the piece to start the weld, and then once it starts, the only way to stop it is to remove the torch from your workpiece that you're welding on. Well, when you do that, you're also removing that post-flow gas, so now that weld isn't being shielded. You can put the torch back on there and let the gas flow on your weld, but I don't know if that quick little action of removing the torch and putting it back on there is enough to contaminate your weld. If you've used this type torch before and you know, please let me know down in the comments. So I know some of you guys are probably thinking, hey, will this thing TIG weld aluminum? Well, sadly, the answer is no, because you need an AC output voltage to TIG weld aluminum, and this one will only do DC. And I'm sure some of you guys are also thinking, hey, what about the spool gun? Well, the answer on that is no, because there's no way to hook the spool gun up to this machine. I have done reviews on other YesWelder machines, both TIG and MIG, that will weld aluminum. So if you're looking for a machine to weld aluminum, check out those reviews. I've got links to them down in the description below. All right, up until now, we have been joining pieces of metal together. Let's now break them apart and let's try some plasma cutting. So I'm going to go into the menu here, and you can see really the only thing I can change on the settings wise is the amperage. But up here at the top on the menu, there are a few settings, and the first one is the pre-flow air. This is the amount of air that comes out before the arc starts, and I'm going to set this to half a second. It will go all the way up to 10 seconds, but I'm going to leave it at half a second. And then of course the next is post-flow air, and I'm going to put it on 5 seconds. That will give it time to cool the tip and everything off after it makes a cut. Of course we can go 2T or 4T. I'm leaving it into 2T. And then the last here is the memory, and it looks like on the memory there's up to 10 presets that you can set for the memory. So let's start out with some 12 gauge sheet metal here. I do have this piece of metal here that's just for a straight edge so that I can get a nicer, more consistent cut. Let's see how well this works. And here's that piece of metal that I just cut, and it looks pretty good on the top side. Now if I flip it around, you can see there is a little bit of dross on there, but that's not bad at all. Okay, so let's step things up a bit. Now I'm going to try some 1/4 inch thick mild steel, and I am still using the same straight edge so that I can get a straight and consistent cut. And if we look here at the front of this 1/4 inch thick flat bar, it did a pretty good job cutting it from the top, but on the back there is quite a bit of dross. I don't know if I need to maybe step up the air pressure or something, but I think I'm going to try this again. Okay, so it looks like cranking the air pressure up did the trick. The top cut is the first cut. The bottom cut is the second one that I just did, and you can see it did make a much better cut. And I just want to share an observation that I've had with this machine while making this video. I can't believe how quiet it is. I've had other brand welders out here that were so loud, I had to turn them off just to do some recording while I wasn't using them. They were so loud that my camera microphone would pick them up and you couldn't understand what I was saying. Well, that's not the case with this welder. I've got it turned on right now and I'm able to talk to you guys with no problem at all. Now, you're probably wondering, well, if it's quiet, that means it's not getting airflow and it probably doesn't have a very good duty cycle. Well, I looked in the manual and for all of the functions of this machine, it has a 60% duty cycle. So I think it's doing a pretty good job of keeping quiet and keeping cool at the same time. Okay, so what about stick welding? Well, all of you guys that are regular viewers of the channel know I cannot stick weld. I am not a stick welder. And it would be rather comical to watch me try and stick weld and probably more of a waste of time for me to try and stick weld. But I do want to point out the machine is rated for 7018, 6011, and 6010 electrodes. And if you decide you want to pick one of these machines up for yourself, be sure and use the discount code MAKINGSTUFF at checkout where you can save 10% off of your order. I've got links down in the description of the video. So that's my review of the Firstess MP200 from YesWelder. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please smash that like button and give me the big thumbs up. And if you aren't a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell so you don't miss any upcoming Making Stuff videos. And thanks for watching.